Content warning. This series will discuss topics that may bring up painful experiences for you. Please take the time to surround yourself with good medicines. If need be, pause the playback and go for a walk, stretch, have a glass of water, and come back to the show when you feel comfortable. Welcome to the Métis Speaker Series. I'm your host, Darian Kovacs. On this podcast series, we will be exploring learning, healing, and rebuilding within the Métis community. Our goal is to create awareness of and generate discussion about Métis issues, as well as how to heal from and move forward in a healthy way. We hope to reduce Métis invisibility in BC through the personal stories from our Métis community members. The show is brought to you by the Métis Nation of British Columbia and Jelly Marketing.
I couldn't help myself. You gave me everything.
Welcome to another episode of the Métis Speaker Series. I have a wonderful guest with us today. Jennifer, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Mallmes, and I live in Grand Forks, BC. I come from Newfoundland. My grandmother and my mom are Mi'kmaq, and my dad is Irish. So a little bit of a mix there, and then on the other side of the world now.
Amazing. And tell me about your how you spend your time, both vocationally and for fun.
I enjoy nature and connecting with nature. I love what I do for work. I love being with people and just helping them find peace in their life wherever they're at. Not just end of life stuff. Just that's what I do for fun. I am pretty chill.
Yeah. And your role within the Métis Nation.
So Douglas College and the Métis Nation of BC have partnered now to create an end-of-life doula program that's specific for end-of-life in Métis communities.
Yeah.
And this is born from a pilot project that we did with First Nations Health Authority, where the first year they came and took an end-of-life doula program, which I created back in 2016. And after we ran 1 year of the pilot, we recognized, hey, this is not inclusive for all people, and especially the Indigenous ways of doing death. And then after running it a few times and then running it in Terrace to a Métis group, we realized that this is not inclusive to Métis. It was a blanket Indigenized program that we had written. So for the last couple of years, I've been working with the Métis Nation of British Columbia just to create their own content that is specific for the differences that happen in Métis communities, such as having chartered communities or having lots of folks living in cities and not so much rural. Things like that do pose differences and different challenges to getting good end-of-life quality care.
Yeah. I love you use the term blanket Indigenous, and blankets are great. We love blankets. They're cozy. But in this case, and I love that it's going to come from your perspective, someone from Douglas College. And I've asked Métis people this, but I'd love that it's going to come from someone who's coming from the outside. But like, what is the difference? Would you say the biggest difference is between blanket Indigenous, Big I, which is lovely that Big I's are being recognized and involved. It's great, versus Métis distinctives-based approaches?
Yeah, that's a good question. The biggest part I kind of mentioned is that Métis people live everywhere, and there's different things that happen on a reserve than off a reserve, and just getting the recognition that people who are Métis kind of live in both those worlds a little bit more than people who might live on a reserve. You're living in, say, Vancouver, and you're trying to practice being, your spiritual or your cultural ways. And it's it's just a different approach, I think. Um, the first time I went back to my own reserve and taught, it was I noticed that there is that difference because everything that I had learned growing up, it was kind of confirmed for me when I taught there, but I never lived actually on the reserve. That's just where my family was from. And then being out here in BC, just noticing that it's huge difference. And it's huge difference no matter like if you're in Ontario or um, up in high level Alberta, there's big differences between each community. And I I love the big eye, but there's so many different funding streams and regulations and ways of doing and ways of knowing that are not the same. So I just felt for myself that there was a gap that needed to be filled, and that's kind of when you ask me what my hobby is, I'm a gap filler. The end of life doula program didn't exist, and I saw that people were dying badly. And I had worked at that point for about 15 years in palliative care, and I couldn't understand why people were dying not how they wanted to. So for me, I wanted to fill that gap. So I wrote the end of life doula program, and then again, there's another gap. This is not inclusive to everyone, and death and dying aren't just for the people who are dying. They're for everybody. And in Métis communities or Indigenous communities or other religious communities or neurodiverse communities, whatever, there's a certain order, there's a certain way of doing and being. And the blanket, again, blankets are great. When you're palliating someone, that means to cover them. So there you go. There's your fun fact for the day. So it is like blanketing somebody, but not everybody wants the same blanket or
Yeah.
needs the same blanket.
Yeah.
You might want wool.
Yeah.
Itchy. No.
Yeah. Or some people like a big heavy hot blanket. Some people like a
Good.
cool blanket. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
So with this, doing the Métis distinctives version, are you also doing like a First Nations distinctive version and a Inuit one?
yeah, so I've done the First Nations one. That's what I wrote back in 2018 that I
Nice.
tried to bring to the Métis Nation, and I did, and it just didn't
Yeah.
fit.
Yeah.
It didn't fit. So that's the thing. You get a different blanket and you start knitting or sewing or
Yeah.
quilting,
Yeah.
you make something that fits. And
Or
with end of
beading.
life,
Start
oh,
beading. Yeah. There you go.
we could beat a blanket. No.
Yeah.
um, it's really important, like to recognize that we get one shot at death. You can get married more than
Yeah.
once. You can
Yes.
you can have babies, but you get one shot at end of life, and to do it well. I think, in my own personal opinion, because we hear these things, oh, die well, and there's other things attached to it. If you die the way that you want to die, it, and it's really speaks to your soul and you're feeling comfort, that's what you need, right? But what you need is going to be different than what I need.
Hmm.
I would love to be out in nature,
Yeah.
um, having a glass of wine
Yeah.
and just saying toodaloo.
Yeah.
But who knows if you know when?
Yeah.
Not, but most deaths are expected.
Yeah.
95% of deaths are expected. Actually, 100% of deaths are expected, but we only have 5% of deaths that are accidents. And I think that people get misconceptions just by the media and watching TV and things
Wow.
like that.
5% are okay. Wow.
So you can plan.
Wow.
You can
That is,
really plan.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Um, maybe can you walk me through some examples of like, and maybe this is a tricky one, but like, what would be a distinctive Métis palliative care piece? Maybe is there like maybe involving the sash or fiddle music, or is there any that maybe you've discovered that were like, oh wow, this is a piece amongst Métis individuals that really fits well for them?
Yeah. Well, there's so much. There's so many layers to it, and um, What I always kind of say is that you've got your five comforts right here. So this is the easy takeaway. This is a teaching lesson, and you've got sight, sound, hearing, touch, and smell. And for a Métis person, that smell might be burning sage. It might be burning sweetgrass or tobacco, or campfire. And for taste, I mean, we eat all sorts of different food, and having something that is, you know, that's made homemade, Métis, good eating, would be comforting. Feeling beads in your fingers, like there's so many simple things, and people think that we have to do these big grandiose things for the farewell exit. Playing fiddle music in the background could bring so much comfort to someone, and just recognizing the connection with nature, again, outside or having a window, and bringing families and communities together to be with each other, to support each other, to take care of each other. It's huge. One of the elders at the conference that I attended for medical assistance in dying awareness, he said to me, bring the kids, bring everybody in, because we know that we're all going to die, but we create this unnecessary fear when we pull people away, or we take people out of it, or we don't cry, and we don't grieve together. So he was really wanting us to kind of like reclaim it and bring it back to the natural way that it used to happen in a home with your family and children, and just being together, you know. The distinct part, I think, of being Métis is that happens in a lot of different places, and because people travel a lot, you're going to a funeral or going to sit bedside with somebody in Saskatchewan, maybe there's more. I feel like that is a actual kind of a roadblock to getting good care in Métis nations, is that your parents usually don't might not live with you or might not live close to you, so travel poses a problem. Um, and then navigating different provincial healthcare systems and funeral systems, because those are both provincially legislated. So the things that you can do in Saskatchewan after someone has passed, you may not be able to do those same things in British Columbia or in Alberta or in Manitoba. So um, the educating piece is really important. Getting to just give a general kind of like, this is what you need to know um, for end of life care wishes, you know.
It's amazing. That's amazing. And tell me about Douglas College and what that involvement is. Is that where the course you can take it through
Mhm.
there, or what does that
Yeah.
look like?
So Douglas College is the largest degree granting college in British Columbia, and we have, in our continuing education side of studies, we have an end of life suite. So we've got a few different courses. So we have end of life doula, we have grief and bereavement, we have the Indigenous end of life guide, and now we have the Métis Nation end of life guide as well. And Douglas College has really committed to doing this work. We've been running the program for 8 years now, and just wanting to keep building and building, because we see the effects of it. When somebody calls me or sends me a note, a past student says, my mom just died and she died at home and it was the way she wanted. Like that's where you kind of get the pat on the back for doing a good job. But the program has successfully had over 3,500 students come through, and all of them have really thought highly of the program, and we see the difference. I've been to Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Ontario, and Manitoba, Saskatchewan. Alberta and everywhere in BC. I just have not been to the territories or Quebec. So it's a really important program. It's a really a grassroots written program, and it just is taking a step back in time before the funeral industry, before people medicalize death, before people really like when you think of somebody is dying, you go to the hospital. Death is not medical. Death is a part of the life cycle. Death is something that we all like we know, and we talk about like the medicine wheel, which is used in Métis Nation, and it's a circle. It's a life stage, right? You go from being born to being an adolescent to being an adult to dying, and just that way of thinking uh, it's so simple, and it just like removes all these other um, kind of Western philosophy layers that if you're sick, you go to the doctor. If you listen to your doctor, you get treatment, you fight, fight, fight. Well, what are we actually hoping to achieve here? Do you want quality, um, a few good days, or do you want to be medicalized and possibly laying in a hospital bed for the last month of your life? So, I mean, people choose that, and that's fine. And that's a big part of what I teach in the Métis program and in all of my programs is that people might choose something that not necessarily agree with. Somebody may choose medical assistance in dying. Now, that's not something that we take part in as end of life doulas. However, we're usually in the conversation around, well, is this what I want? And then afterwards, being there to support the family, because the family has a different kind of grief when there's medical assistance in dying because this person is choosing to leave this world. And that might not be what the family thinks was right or the doula. So it's being with people no matter where they're at, and just offering that support and not non-judgmental. There's a lot of humility in this work. I've worked with people who I definitely didn't agree with how they were doing things. But I've also had some wonderful experiences. During COVID, I had a lady who had chosen medical assistance in dying, and because the parks were closed, uh, she was granted access to a beautiful park setting, and the ambulance came and they brought a stretcher, and we were able to go down to the stream and get cold water, and she put her hands in there, and she just loved feeling alive in the last moments of her life. And then the funeral home was able to come and take her to the funeral home. So I've been involved in some beautiful, beautiful ceremonies and rituals, and whatever that looks like for you. That's another thing. There's no concrete way to do a ritual or a ceremony. That really depends on the person and how they live their life. That should be what's represented how they end their life.
It's amazing. And do you know the history of like the name, of course, Douglas College coming from Governor James Douglas, whose
Hmm.
wife is Amelia Douglas, who's
Hmm.
Métis, which is
Yeah,
really exciting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We're super committed at Douglas College around any Indigenous or Métis or Micmac or whatever. We're so committed there, and we continue to try to grow these programs. Especially, it's my heart work, right? Like for me, it's not work. It is definitely my heart work, and the piece of that is that if somebody lives rurally, and now this is not just generally a Métis issue, it's anybody who lives rurally, when they get sick and they're at home, what happens is they get flown to Vancouver, or they take an ambulance to another location, and then they're alone. And they're alone there. Or the family is scrambling now to try to get there to be with them. When instead, with a level of confidence and education, they may choose to stay at home. People fear getting in trouble by doing that, or a lot of people fear pain. What if there's pain? What if we can't control the pain at home? Palliative pain management is really spectacular, and in my own personal experience, I've never witnessed anybody in any huge level of pain, and mostly what you see is comfort and peace and just this aura in the room that is just something that I can't even describe. It's just calmness. Like, so it's a beautiful experience, but little pain. And if that's somebody's fear, then we can look at that. Is there a nurse in town that can come and manage that pain for you? Or is there a clinic in town? Or are they willing to have a little bit of pain to have the comforts of their own home? So it's really thinking about those things instead of panicking and reacting and saying, let's go to Vancouver or let's call 911. And when somebody dies at home, if they have the proper paperwork done, which a doula would know how to do, they don't have to call 911 or the police. They call, or the ambulance, they call the funeral home and they can say, so and so just passed. We're not ready for them to be picked up yet. Can we have some time? And you actually can keep your loved one at home um, for overnight or for a day if you want to, just so the family can come and be together if that's something that your family wants and is able to do.
It's amazing. So can a person, I'm going to call them lay people, people that are listening to this show right now that are members of a charter community, know that there are people in their life who will die not by accident. Could they take this course and provide some of the services and learnings that
Yeah.
they learn?
Yeah. So for this program, historically, it's about a mix. It's a mix. We have maybe 50% of people coming to take it for their own personal use. They have no experience with this, and they are brave enough, because I think talking about death and addressing death is a brave thing. I do it all the time, and but for somebody who doesn't, to even think and open up that container is huge. And then the other 50% are social workers or nurses or doctors, some lawyers. So people who are dealing with some of this in their own work, but wanting a little bit more humility and compassion and skills to do it better.
That's incredible. And how do people sign up? Where can they find the course? Is it online? Is it in person?
We run the program online and in person, and you can sign up for the program at Douglas College in their continuing education section on their website.
That's incredible. So we'll put a link. We'll get a link from you and we'll put it in the
Awesome.
show notes. And so if this interests you, if you are so moved, the link will be there. And is it continuous enrollment like live classes or is it on demand?
Yeah, a lot of the times a community will actually request me to come in and teach.
Okay.
So part of the way that I do this is that um, I take a real Indigenous end of life, not end of life, educational standpoint on it. That is really important to me. So for me, I want to teach in your communities with your elders, talk about the issues that you might have or the successes that you might have, and really actually make it specific to your actual community. So I tend not to teach the Indigenous programs at the actual college. I will come to you. I think that's really important. I think it's really important to be, able to even go home to your families at night after talking about some of this stuff and just give your kids a hug, or your wife or your husband a hug. I think it's important for the people in the program to be talking to the people who are actually going to be working with you, whether we visit a hospice that's in your community or invite a funeral director in to give us some, you know, mostly like even a meet and greet with the funeral director. I think it's really important to know and shop around actually for good quality care. Again, going back again, this is it's a one-time shot. Like, let's do it well. I think that end of life care can be so beautiful. People think of it as maybe ugly or messy or dirty, and it's been hidden in the closet. I'm also a birth doula. And when I birth doula, I'm thinking, wow, that's messy. And that sometimes gets really loud and crazy. But we say, oh, what a beautiful birth that was. When in reality, every death that I've been at, calm, peace, love, forgiveness in the room, all of those wonderful, wonderful feelings. And yet we don't do death well, even though it's this beautiful, beautiful thing. So my hope is to help people do death better, which means do death the way that that person wanted it, something that represents them and the life that they lived.
And this may not exist. I'm curious, have you ever, and as this request come up, to say, do you have a list of Métis friendly or Métis sensitive or Métis aware funeral directors in BC or across the
Yeah.
country?
I definitely do have a few people in my pocket that I would call specifically if somebody was Métis or Indigenous, and that's all to do with how they run their business, because funeral homes are businesses, and some people are very open to whatever, and some people are very strict and stringent. No, this is the way that we do it, and you can come and visit your loved one from 6 until 8. For me, that's not going to work. I work with funeral homes that accommodate people, accommodate large families, accommodate traditions and customs. And you know what? Actually, we can't do this until this. If somebody wants to come in and wash a person's body ritually after someone's died, like, is that funeral home actually going to let you do that? So, really knowing what the funeral home will allow and not allow. One of my great friends runs ancient burials, and I don't know if I'm allowed to give a plug, but anyway, Zane is fantastic. And one of our students, her dad had passed, and it was just so happened that it was right after the class. And Zane actually went to the island and got him and made sure he was the first one on the ferry when he was coming back across. So those little extra things that make things special. That's the kind of funeral home that I would want to work with. If you're in a town where you've got one funeral home and you just use them because you don't know any different, or like that's the closest, we'll just do it. They suck, but I'm very passionate about shopping around for your funeral director, because that can add or take away to a person's grief um, afterwards.
Wow. That's some great, this has been incredible. Such great advice, great ideas. And there's a course people can follow up with afterwards. Do you know how long the course is? How many hours?
The course will be 4 days over about 6 hours a day,
Yeah.
so not
Okay.
anything too heavy.
Yeah.
It's really about reflecting on what you've got and working from building it from the ground up, just kind of like the doula program was
Hmm.
built. It's just, let's start here and let's work through our own stuff so that we can be present and use the tools that you have in your community to make this great.
Yeah. Jennifer,
Yeah.
that's incredible. Anything else you want to leave with listeners today and viewers?
Yeah, if you're at all curious about death and dying and supporting your loved ones, just have those conversations, because you might open a door that they've been waiting to have open for a long time. Having those conversations with your family and your friends. And doing it at any stage of life. Death is not reserved for older people. And the sooner that you prepare, then the more relaxed you can be around it, and remove those fears around, well, what if I die and nobody knows my passwords, or how is my family going to be if I'm gone? These things are things that we can think about now. I've had an advanced care plan done since I was 29.
Mm-hmm.
I, it's not about really you're in those last vigiling days of your life. It's about being prepared and like opening those conversations, because those conversations are huge
Yeah.
in healing and in moving forward and in life. Just live.
It's amazing. Jennifer, thank you. Marcy, for being here today. Really, really appreciate all that you've been able to share, all that you've developed, for bringing Métis distinctives to a part of the world that is so crucial, something that will literally every human will face.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my heart work. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Thanks for everyone for joining us this week on the Métis Speaker Series. We'll see you next time on the show. This has been the Métis Speaker Series podcast. I'm Darian Kovacs. Thanks to Métis Nation BC for making this possible. You can listen to all of our episodes, learn more about the podcast, and sign up to the Métis Nation of BC newsletter to stay up to date on Métis news at métispodcastseries.ca. You can find out more about the music we're playing by Love Life by visiting SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/lovelifeofficial, LUVLYF official, and link in the show notes for your convenience. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast listening device. See you again soon. Mina Kawapa Mitten. Thank you, Marcy, for listening.